Have you ever hesitated to go for something because you weren't 100% ready? Well, you're not alone. And those moments are things that we miss. Today, we're going to talk about how smart women miss opportunities because of this phenomenon and what you can do about it. Stay right where you are. Welcome to How to Get What You Want. This podcast is for driven women ready to claim their goals and navigate their careers with clarity and confidence. Join me as we explore real stories, tools, and strategies to help you steer your career exactly where you want to go. Let's get started on helping you get what you want. Hey friends, I'm Susie. I'm so glad that you made the choice to be here today. And this is a really important topic. I guess I only talk about really important topics. The myth that we're going to bust today is that you don't have to be 100% ready to move forward. And this is something, especially, and we're talking about women today, but if you're not a woman, this can absolutely apply to you too. The research shows that women tend to wait until they're 100% ready in a new role, and men only feel like they need to be 60% ready. That's the gender research that women will automatically, like in their mind, opt themselves out of a experience or an opportunity internally because they don't feel 100% experienced. I have felt that way. I remember in my role, in my head going, oh, I wish I had that experience that I could say yes to. So it happens all the time to us because we feel like we are the exception to the rule, or we might get in our own way because we believe that we better be ready before we say yes. And in fact, HP did an internal study that showed that even in stretch opportunities, things that people were offered internally, that they saw that the people that said yes to those opportunities actually moved in their career faster than the people that didn't. And LinkedIn did a study too about stretch opportunities and the correlation to career advancement. So it's really important to think about this phenomenon and that if it is getting in your way, what do you think about when you see an opportunity come before you? Is the automatic things that you think about in your mind are things like, I'm not ready to do this. I don't have the experience. You wish you could, but these are things that we are conditioned for whatever reason, whether it is the social condition that happened somewhere where we've come from, whether it's the way that an organization that we molded us to believe, whatever it is, we may be getting in our own way. And because we want to know that we can do it, and we want to have the confidence to know we can do it, even though people around us may know that we can and even may tell us we can, but we still opt ourselves out. It's a really interesting perspective. As an entrepreneur, a business owner, I remember early in my journey, a friend of mine, Morag Barrett, she talked about not being ready, making sure that you don't have the contract done, your website done, all these things done before you go out and say, I'm ready to coach or I'm ready to do speaking. And I remember thinking, oh, I won't do that. But yet I found myself focusing on these things before I would talk about it to other people, the proposal or the content. And so it's funny that even though we may think it, like we don't allow ourselves to get in the way, what's the evidence of that? What are the things that you might be doing that you might not even realize that you're waiting to feel really comfortable around? I certainly, when Morag told me that, I thought, I won't do that. I'll just jump in. But then when I saw and I look back on how much time I wasted just getting ready before I spoke it out loud or said, I'm doing this. So is that happening to you? Have you thought lately about, oh gosh, I wish that opportunity would have been offered to me? I remember thinking that too when I was in a corporate role and how I would easily in my head say, oh, that person got that because they had the experience and I didn't. And what that did was perpetuate that myth for me. It's something to consider. I want to tell you a story about a friend of mine that this happened to. And I'll tell you what, she is a smart woman and it still impeded her thinking. Hey, Susie here. Thought I'd pop in. I wanted to let you know I've been an executive coach for over a decade. I work with executives and they call me their silent partner because I help them increase their confidence when they're facing really difficult decisions. If you'd like to see if we're a good fit, head over to susietomandchuck.com and fill out an application. I'd love to hear from you. So, my friend James always talks about the fact that he learned early that when any opportunity comes before him, he just says yes, even if he doesn't feel ready. And I say that because what a great example of somebody that has a default. So, your default might be no. How can you shift that default to yes? And he says, a lot of times I'm like so uncertain, but I still will just opt in and then figure out later. So we'll talk about that. I want us to be inspired by James. But I'm going to tell you about my friend Lori. This is a few years ago. She was a VP in a big organization and worked for a wonderful person that she really respected. And that person was plucked out of the organization. Basically, the CEO came to her boss and said, I have an enterprise role for you and you're going to take it, basically. And so Lori, my friend, was like, oh, I'm so distraught because I loved my boss. Her boss had come to her and said, you should go for my role. You should interview to take on my role. It'd be an SVP role. And it was a stretch for my friend Lori. But she was like, no, I'm not ready. I don't think this is the right time for me. At that level, they have interviews, they have a lot of different interviews for a candidate that comes in, and all of the person's direct reports will interview their potential new boss. So Lori found herself interviewing all of the candidates to be her new boss. It really struck Lori as she was thinking about the skills, the attributes, the personalities, all of the things that of the person that was sitting in front of her. And she started to reflect on, what do they have that I don't have? She finally came to this realization that she could do the job in comparison to all these candidates that came before her. That's what it took. It took for her to kind of feel, see, experience the fact that these people are just people. It's almost like she had, when she first said no to her boss, that she wasn't ready, she was putting herself against this facade that she imagined. It was such an empowering experience for her to interview these people because it was allowing her to see and compare herself and be like, I have a lot more than they have to offer, really, because I also have the context and the very specific experience. All the other people were coming from the outside. So Lori went back to her boss and said, I changed my mind. And her boss was like, it's too late. We already extended an offer to one of the candidates, because it took her a while. She didn't just start talking this or have done one of these interviews and just jumped in and said it. She was reflective of those. And so she lost some time. So she was like, oh, she's so disappointed. And then this never happens at this level, or it doesn't happen commonly after a candidate had gone through all the negotiations and they actually gave an offer, but the person decided not to take it. So it was back on the table. Lori, the president who was now be her boss, came to her and said, I would, in fact, you don't even have to interview. I'll just put you in the role, because he had so much respect for her ability to do it. He didn't even have any question. She was the only one that was getting in her own way. She was opting herself out. Look, her boss that was leaving and the president both said to her, you're ready for this? And she still said, I'm not ready. And she impeded herself because of that. Everybody else around her was saying, come on, let's go. If you're not ready, you can, that's such a blatant example of that happening. It can be very clear that you're doing it. People can, from the outside, her boss could have said to her, hey, listen, Lori, wake up. You don't need to be 100% ready. It's actually really interesting that she didn't say that to her, or maybe she did and she ignored it. But having that awareness of people saying to you, you can do it, that's definitely direct evidence. But the other thing that is a lot more subtle is when we get in our own way. And we can identify this by the fact that when we hear something or we acknowledge that there's an opportunity or we see somebody else get an opportunity, what are those narratives that go on in our head when we're like, oh, that makes sense that he got it because he does have experience or he is more confident or he has done this before or she. I shouldn't say it's just that way. The research points to the fact that women tend to wait until they feel 100% better or ready to move forward. Take that research as fact and let that motivate you to pay attention to when it's happening around you. And it could be something that is, for you, maybe it's you're working within a company and you think back on some of the opportunities that some of your colleagues have gotten, some of the experience, maybe the exposure, the introductions. What are those things that other people have gotten around you that you have maybe opted yourself out of or you haven't considered asking for? Whew, this can feel like something that once you uncover, you can't unsee. And it could also be in your personal life where you think about something that you want to do, but you're like, oh, I can't put myself out there, do an interview, be on a panel, be a part of this organization. I don't have the experience to help them in this way. How is that getting in your way? And what do you need to do about it? The first course of action is to identify it. Be an observer of when this might be happening around you because it starts in your head. It starts with, our natural reaction to things that feel challenging is to lull yourself into a perspective of the reasons why you can't. So pay attention to those and decide if they're valid or not. Whether it's something that you do want to pursue, jump into it before you feel comfortable. Once you identify that this may be happening to you, how can you look ahead to the growth of it and embrace that? Understand that it is something that is going to feel uncomfortable, that you're not going to know how to do. And remember that you don't have to do it alone. There are resources around that you could pull from. There are people around that want to help you. Understanding that you're not going to do it alone and really thinking about, all right, this is going to be a challenge. How am I going to get through it? Instead of giving you the excuses or thinking that you have to have something before you move forward. It's a tough one because until you see it happening or you realize that sometimes it feels just like a comfortable friend inside of you, that voice that is like, it's fine, stay in your lane, don't move forward, don't say yes, don't raise your hand, just stay sitting. You're not ready for that. That's your response to taking a risk, staying in the comfort zone. It's your natural body honoring you. So don't let it do that. Because the real truth is that getting uncomfortable is the best way to grow. The more uncomfortable you are, and the more you have to figure it out, you will learn so much along the way. So, how do you focus on that? Can you take a page from James' advice and always default to yes, or always default to raising your hand? I also have another friend who says that whenever she's at a conference, she makes herself be the person whenever there's a Q&A to just, she raises her hand before she even has a question. And I love that idea that she hasn't thought it through. She doesn't wait for this moment. Sometimes you believe that you'll just be inspired to say, yep, it's me. What are those things that make you just automatically raise your hand or just move forward, even if it feels uncomfortable? And so taking some advice from James or my friend Charisse, who is the one that always asks a question. So embrace the growth zone. That's your first tip. The second tip is focus on your unique value. One thing that we don't always consider when there's a job description or there's some expectations or there's a list of things that need to be done, that there's this other list that has to correlate to it. Listen, everybody's different. Everybody's experience is different. So you have a unique perspective. You have a unique set of skills. You have a unique way of moving through things based on what you've learned from your past. So don't look for it to be a one-to-one. Don't focus on what you don't have. Focus on the value you bring and think about what uniqueness you could bring to it compared to somebody else. When Lori was considering and seeing that she is more than in her perspective what those other candidates had, she was focusing on her value. She saw what her value was, and she was able to, in reflecting with that experience, to understand, oh my gosh, yes, I am enough. I have the context, I have the relationships, and I have the experience to be successful at this. So, what is that unique value? And really celebrate that. We tend to see the value of other people, and we believe that they have what it takes to get things done because, for whatever reason, we kind of put people just a little bit ahead of ourselves. So is that you? Are you inhibiting yourself because you don't celebrate your unique value that you bring? And maybe it means that every week or every day, you need to verbally say out loud, I am really good at this. And the evidence of this is this comment or these results. What is the value you bring? Other people see it. You need to understand that and focus on that. And understand that everybody's going to approach a different experience differently, and you'll have your own spin on it. Have faith in that and focus on that value that you bring. And then the third tip is right from James, practice saying yes before you feel ready. Start to identify, ooh, that was an opportunity. I'll just say yes. I'll just raise my hand. When somebody asks a question, do you want to challenge yourself to be the first one to answer? If there is an opportunity that comes up and somebody says, I remember actually when my boss early on said, I need somebody to lead this project, I remember thinking, oh, that person, my peer, would be so much better at it than me. I didn't raise my own hand. And my boss came back to me later and said he was disappointed in me. And he wished I would have opted in because he didn't want to just assign it to me. He wanted me to say yes. He wanted to know that I would be committed to figuring it out. And he didn't want to just assign it to me. That's an interesting perspective to have, is that people, especially internally, want to know that you have skin in the game and that you have the confidence to pull it off. They don't want to just assign it to you. They don't know for sure that you'll be able to rise to the occasion. But if you ask for it, that's the first sign that you will make sure that it's a success. Just to let you know, what you need to do is see it around you. Embrace the fact that feeling uncomfortable is a really smart career step. Embrace it. It makes you better. It will lead to better things. I'm not going to tell you what those things are because it's part of the journey. The second one is focus on your unique value. What do you bring? It is unique to you and you can apply that. And the third is say yes before you're ready. And by the way, people want to see that their team is opting in instead of just waiting for things to come to them because they want to know that you are committed. Put this in place, this in practice, start to see around you when this may be happening to you and start to feel a little risky. This is a great time to do it. You may need to think about things that are upcoming every week. You might want to make it intentional practice about, I'm going to start saying yes more. And even giving yourself a threshold around that. What are you going to do to make sure that you take action? Here's a reflective question. What is one opportunity that you've been avoiding because you haven't felt 100% ready? Maybe it's something that has already been filled, or maybe it's something you can still opt into. And think about what's stopping you. What small step can you take? That's something to take some time to ponder, look back on, consider, show up differently. When you do this, people expect your natural behaviors, the habits that you have. So the first few times that you opt in and you raise your hand or you feel more aggressive, it might feel aggressive to you because it's different in the same situation. Maybe it's in a staff meeting and all of a sudden all the to-dos are given out and you raise your hand earlier than normal and it feels different. It may feel different, but get used to it. Allow yourself to get uncomfortable. Growth doesn't happen in perfection. It doesn't. That's the slow snail way. If you want to take a more accelerated approach to your career, it's getting uncomfortable all the time. Those are the people that get more exposure because they allow themselves to do it before they're ready. They ask for help, which is natural exposure. It helps people understand where they come from. And when people see you go for it, they give you more. The people that opt in, they always say, give the to dos to the busy person. When you get the great reputation about you'll get it done in a really good way, people will depend on you. It raises your trust, it increases your influence. There's so many things that come with it besides just that, what you'll learn. And it all comes from embracing that inexperience, that feeling that you're not ready. It also helps other people have the courage to do it too, especially if you can talk about that. James told me when we worked together that the difference between he and I is he learned really early that if you just move forward with confidence, people will have a lot of faith in you. And he said, I want to see you do that more because you're really good at what you do, but you just wait for people to notice. So raise your hand more. Say yes before you're ready. Embrace that. Accelerate your career. Give yourself the permission to celebrate your value and be really proud about being uncomfortable. Make that your normal state. And then turn down those voices in your head. They can get in your way a lot. I'm so glad you made the commitment for yourself to be here today. I'd love to hear from you. Share this episode with somebody that you thought about, that you want to give them permission to be uncomfortable because you see their value. If you want to join my newsletter, I always go a little deeper on these topics. It comes out every Monday. It's adopting a negotiator mindset to get what you want. And that's what this is all about, to get what you want, get uncomfortable to get there. So thanks for being here. Remember that negotiation is more than a skill, it's a mindset. Until next time.